Hi, I'm Christina Morgan-Meldrum, and I've been in the management consultant in change for a really long time. 30 years, I think we've worked it out each, haven't we? So,
Yes.
and interestingly, we have Jen and I will have very parallel kind of experiences in going through stuff out. If you looked at our maps of our lives, kind of like cross over quite a few times in different things. I like change because I love doing something different. I love going from a place that you've not been before and kind of working out how to get there and weaving all of the things that I find interesting and fascinating to go through to get there. My business is called In Cahoots because I believe that if you work together and collaborate, then you get a much better result than having one particular brain being applied. So I really like the ability to collaborate, which is kind of an example of this right here now.
Exactly.
Is that we're collaborating together on this particular adventure on Change Crash Investigators. That's the adventure that we're embarking on to share some crashes or near crashes.
Yeah, and I'm Jen, as Christina mentioned. My business is called Axiology Group. I've also been in change for just over 30 years. Really started out in that project space and kind of stayed there. I get bored really quickly, as Christina knows. So project life suits me, and have just seen a lot of good stuff, but also a lot of not great stuff. And we thought we would bring all of that collective experience to Change Crash Investigators to learn from those mistakes and hopefully help you learn from ours and other people's that have gone before us, and bring that to life so that you can learn from it and you can have some fun and while you learn, but also apply those lessons learned before you experience a change crash.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is really interesting about this process is there's a bit of a validation that happens when Jen and I talk through some of the experiences, and sometimes it can be quite lonely. You could be a lonely voice talking about how not to do something or how not to maybe avoid or to avoid this particular thing that's going to happen if you let it happen. It can feel a little bit lonely sometimes when you're the only voice that's there saying something different, and it's good to be able to have somebody with Jen's experience to be able to share and kind of validate, oh yeah, that is kind of not okay, or that is completely okay, that's exactly the right path to do. So I find that helps as well.
Yeah, and we love to bounce ideas off of each other and have fun while we do it. So hopefully you have fun in the process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Ready to roll.
Welcome to the next episode of Change Crash Investigators. Today we're going to be talking all things operating model and org design connected to op model, and learning some lessons along the way of what to do but also what not to do when you're working on an op model change.
Now remind me, Jen, your first experience of this.
Oh yes. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Way back
Tell me
in the
about
day. So really early on in my career, I was very, very young. I was working on a team, and it was a fantastic team, actually. It was probably one of the strongest teams I've ever.
Yeah.
I was so lucky that at that stage in my career to work with such great leaders and to work with such smart people who I could kind of role model and emulate and just learn a lot from. So set off in that space. We were doing great work, and we moved departments, and the day of our Christmas party, I think it was 80 of 84 staff were given their notice on the day of our Christmas party. And this was way back in the day. So there were people walking, like, it's not called preserved benefits, I can't remember, defined benefits.
Oh yeah,
that's what it was called. They were walking they've been with the company forever.
They were born.
They were born in the company, kind of. And so they were walking out with extremely large checks. There were people who had just joined the team who had been given notice. And then there was myself
and a couple of my friends, colleagues, and we were told, oh no, we saved you.
Saved you.
Saved. That was the word.
Wow.
And
You're drowning.
yeah, right? Like, so then we all go and we get on a boat.
Okay. Yeah,
For
layer.
just layer on layer. For, I mean, the hedonistic Christmas parties
Yeah.
back in the day. I was sick till the following Wednesday.
Wow.
And 30 years later, still can't drink Chardonnay. But if you look at it now, you would never do it now.
No.
Like, but what that did,
How irresponsible and
so
nice.
irresponsible. Like, just the health and safety, workplace health and safety, the duty of care that they had to those individuals, the way that it was like, okay,
It's unkind
here's
as
your
well.
check. Now you're going to go on 3-4 weeks leave over Christmas, and those of us who were saved were like, well, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening? So I think that for me was a turning point in my career. Up until then, I had very much been in the human resources, learning and development space, and looking at projects from more of that angle and change from that angle. And that experience to me shifted my thinking around what do I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I kind of said, I don't want anybody to go through that.
No.
If I can stop one company, one team, one from having that happen to them, and just seeing as well, like, people just were walking out not feeling like their dignity was
Yeah.
intact, that they were it was awful. So for me, it's kind of what shifted my thinking from learning into, I even stopped my master's degree. I was doing a master's degree in e-learning.
Wow.
But one of the very first of the time, we learned on CD. So they sent us our learning packages in CD, and we had to, plug it into our computer. Did you have discussion forums? Weren't even a thing then. It was, if I think back, it's bizarre. But anyway, so I stopped my master's degree and said, I actually want to focus on change now, because there's more to it than learning, and that it shaped my career. And shaped, I would say, our last episode we talked a lot about our drivers and our safety, and I was always extremely driven by fairness, and equity, and at the time equity was my number one, like off the charts. Now it's autonomy, but back then it was equity, and it shaped who I am, and for me it was, if I can prevent that from happening to anybody else, that's my new mission in life. So I kind of learned those lessons really early on and have carried them with me throughout. But it's interesting. Like, you can't always, and I'm not saying they should have communicated with us earlier. They just shouldn't have handled it the way that they did, right? And that for me was the learning point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really catalyzing sort of moment for you to kind of go through and see that experience unfold, because I imagine that for different people there would have been different experiences
100%.
on that boat.
On that boat, right.
Going through all sorts of different emotions, and they're almost learning like how this is affecting them in the moment, which is really, really unkind. To put people in a situation where they've got work colleagues, potential future work colleagues or bosses, and they've been given this information,
which can be debilitating for people, because
Yeah.
they're processing, and you go through all the stages of shock and denial, and not resistance, but like processing and going, I have so many questions, and who do I ask them to, at this juncture.
And luckily we have evolved.
Thank God we have evolved.
Than,
the laws got a little bit tighter.
They have something to do with the drama.
We no longer have those Christmas parties.
That's a good start. But there's horror stories. Like, I know of a colleague, there was 2 rooms. They were told, like, 2 minutes before, go to this room or go to this room. One room you went, one room you stayed. This colleague happened to be in a meeting, so didn't know, came back to her desk, and people are like, what room should have you been in? She's like, I don't know. What room? What? What's happening?
What do you mean, what room?
And then, getting people to box up their lives and literally walk out the door as well. Like, all of those horrible experiences, so unhuman,
Yeah.
and so unkind,
Yeah.
to kind of go through that process. Just absolutely horrendous
Well,
experiences.
you hear of
that we go
those kind of horror stories. I think of like Wall Street in the 80s, where you
Yeah.
were handed a cardboard box and they were like, go empty your desk in
Yeah.
10 minutes. And that was it. Like, that's
Yeah.
how you found out, right? Yeah, there's much better ways to do it, now.
Yeah, much better ways. And we've probably learned a lot from that time.
I think we have.
hopefully through your influence as well. What are some of the things that you reckon is a better way to do that?
So I think for me, it's, and I touched on it earlier, right? You can't communicate too early because the uncertainty is too much, right? So at a certain point in time, there's people working on it. And I think it's really important that it's not just a HR person and a leader that's working on just, let's say, org design for the starting point. But operating model is even bigger than that. So let's just talk org design to start with. When there's a structure change and that announcement is about to happen, to have project management, and I say it like in brackets, you don't need to have a project manager, but you need to have somebody who has that regimented, structured approach to think through all of the what could go wrong, what do we need to tell them, where do we publish this, what goes on the SharePoint, all those aspects of it to manage that component of it. End to end, right? And it's thinking through not just the names in the boxes and what happens to those people and how do they get communicated with, but what happens after or while they're still there working out their notice period, what happens after they exit. Because even the thinking through of like, signature processes or value chains and things like that. And if somebody is a key role in that, who's going to do that work? Where does that handoff point go? How does that change process? How does it change workflow? What forms need to be rewritten because it's got somebody's name signed on it? Like that, that kind of stuff. So just thinking through all of the, if you want to think like a systems thinking kind of approach, like what are all of the unintended consequences of those names in the boxes?
And that's a really key point, and I know that we've talked about this before. The names in the boxes is almost the last step.
The last step.
Not the first step. And I think people can just go, well, let's just put all the names in the boxes of the people that we want to, keep or retain. And you kind of like, but what? Like, what's the driver behind this? What are you trying to achieve? Like, all of the kind of backstory that needs to go for it before you put any names in any boxes anywhere is kind of like, well, you've got to think through a whole heap of stuff before you kind of get even to that point. But that's natural, and I think people do that because it feels a bit more tangible, whereas the other stuff feels
like, I know Christina, she should be in that box, and it's like, but should she? Like, go back, what's the need, right? I worked with this amazing people partner 15 years ago now, and she used to say, it's not about the person, it's the role. What do you need the role to do? And work out the role first, and then the people aspects of it, you need to go through the process of application and expressions of interest, and all that kind of stuff. But think about what's the need of the organization first, not just we just need to move stuff around because we've got a new boss or somebody's left, but think about the need, what's the actual need, and then design for that, and then the other stuff follows.
Yeah, very, very helpful in design for the need. So in the conversation that we've been having, Jen, you've been deliberate in your distinction between op model and org change.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a little bit?
So when I look at an operating model, organizational design is one aspect of the operating model, right? So you really need to work through what is the service, what is the product what is the outcome we want to deliver to the customer, the vendor, et cetera. And from there, then you work through, therefore, what signature processes do we need to have? How does workflow happen? And then the last thing you work through is actually then, therefore, what is the org design? And then finally, where did the people, align to and who's impacted and stuff. So org design is probably the last aspect of it. But underpinning all of that organizational change should sit across all of that because, you're looking at what are those systemic impacts across. If the model changes that way, what happens to the existing, what happens to the new, how do we upskill capability, how do we bring in new, how do we dial and close out stuff that's in the pipeline that we're no longer going to service, like, all those aspects of it. So org change kind of sits underneath it. Org design is one component of it, but there's so much more to an operating model than just, boxes, names and boxes. Yeah,
exactly. And it often gets distilled down to that, but and that's often why some errors are made, because they haven't actually thought through the whole process around what that means. So value chain was the thing that I was talking about. Even just like fundamentally understanding the value chain of the business, like where does it make money?
Yeah.
Who are the partners? How does the customers get involved? Like all of that, kind of just mapping it out. Because some businesses are really complicated. And
absolutely,
really complex,
especially in this day and age.
Yeah. So needing to understand that a little bit better kind of helps drive that. But then what are you trying to achieve? What's the desire? What's the outcome? What's our business outcome? Not operating model outcome.
Yeah, outcome of the project.
It's like, what is the outcome the business is trying to achieve? Because it's a big change.
It's a huge change.
Everything happens, like all of the levers get pulled and changed and adjusted. So you don't want to embark on it if you're just like, oh, I really don't like Fred and I just want to get rid of Fred.
Right, exactly. And I think like where I've seen it go wrong, right, is where the organization has underestimated the operating model and the current the solidification of the current state and what it would take to actually unfreeze that and move it into this new thing. And I was talking to somebody recently around, like, there's a lot of change models out there, right? And people like to wheel out Lewin's unfreeze, change, refreeze model, and that was great back in the 50s, where you could refreeze
but you actually had a refreeze moment,
and you could freeze it for a long time. Even the 90s you could refreeze, right? But the point I was trying to make to this person as I was talking to them was, I don't think we can ever refreeze in this day and age. I think we're at a stage where we need to unfreeze 100%. We work through an amorphous change, and then we need to move into like a slushy, mushy, like a Slurpee kind of consistency, so that we can morph and like globulize the organization, so that we can fit ourselves into whatever the next thing is, because the next thing is coming so super fast. And what really freaked me out recently was everybody's AI, and then I jumped on an AICD at Australian Institute of Company Directors call, and they're like, quantum, and I'm like, what? They're like, no, you should all be talking about quantum computing, and I'm going, oh my god, who's talking about quantum computing and change? Nobody, right? So the next thing is right around the corner for us, and if we refreeze it for AI, we're not going to be able to quickly adapt to quantum. So can we ever really refreeze anymore? I don't think we can. So when you're looking at operating model for the future, you have to keep that kind of little bit of ambiguity around it, to say, how can we set ourselves up to be able to quickly adapt to whatever the next thing is, without actually probably knowing what that next thing could be.
So you heard it first. The new change model is called slushy.
Slushy. All right, we're going to acronym this. SLUSH. Okay. Slush model. You've trademarked. Trademarking it right now. The slush model. Exactly. Yeah.
For sure. And I was actually reading really recently an article about the amount of change that even the ESG, so environmental sustainability and governance models, and how that will also change businesses. They reckon to the same, if not more, than the AI impact to businesses. So, that's super interesting.
Because I think, like, so many of us in change, like, we don't even think, like, from a citizen's perspective, we might go, 2030 targets, 2035, et cetera, 2050 targets. I had one organization saying, we can't get to carbon neutral till 2050. I'm like, you're a superannuation fund. Like, come on.
So you can. Stop predicting that.
I think I was like, in my response. But we're thinking of it as a citizen.
Yeah.
right? Not necessarily from a change practitioner's
Yeah.
lens.
One of the things that that I always debate in my mind is around what level of involvement when. So how do I get people involved? Because obviously co-design's way better.
Yeah.
But like, when is the moment that you do that? Because you don't really want them to be co-designing the fact that they're not going to have a job potentially as well. So how do you? What's that level of involvement? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's interesting if you look at the difference between the two. Org design, very hard for co-design because, again, it's just boxes and names, and oftentimes there's either a cost cutting factor that cost out, as they kindly say, in organizations, or there's new managers come in and they need to rejig the team. So that, I think, the consultation period is the start of the co-design. So yes, decisions have been made, this is going to happen, and you really can't involve that many people in it up front. But once the announcement is made, and then you move into consultation, and then you look at, once then the final structure is presented, and you can then look at what are the implications and the change management that needs to happen. Then I think you can pull people in 100% to co-design. Consultation, when it's done authentically, is also a form of that, and collaborative design, that kind of thing. But operating model is very different because what operating model is looking at is what's no longer serving us in the current state. What longer term future do we need to have? And I think that's where you can get a lot more involvement in co-design. You can be a lot more open and transparent around your communications and the engagement around stuff. So even if you can't involve 100% of the people in the organization, you can involve subject matter experts. They can go back and message that out. You can be much more upfront about what it is that you're talking about. So I think the difference between the two, operating model lends itself a lot more to co-design than org design structure does.
And I agree. So when I've done operating model design, having people in the room, workshopping processes and bottlenecks and stuff like that, and having all of them in the room, the luxury of having everybody in the same room, and being able to sort of process those things and go through and understand the reasons behind. I remember running many multi-day workshops where we'd basically be mapping out the as-is and then kind of working out what that looks like and where you want that to go. So the earlier the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And getting them involved. But I love the fact that you can still have a degree of change. So the authentic consultation part is really important. And in the one where I moved them from break-fix to technical consultants, I was very clear that I wanted to run that process very differently to what I've run before. So similar to your experience where you had a horrible time and you wanted to do something different. So I was very clear, and obviously partnered very closely with the HR people. I was very clear about how I wanted to run that because I wanted them to feel that they were valuable. The organisation had moved on from the service that they were providing, because break-fix financial planner had to wait for months for somebody sometimes to turn up. That doesn't really sound like a very good model.
No.
You need somebody local
right now.
Like computer right now. So that wasn't going to be a sustainable long-term model for them anyway. That involved them right throughout that process around getting them upskilled and building them up with the view that even if they decided this wasn't, they weren't going to be the people who continue this on, they've now got some skills that they could then apply elsewhere as well. And making sure that process felt very honouring. And one of the biggest compliments I got was when they thanked me for making them redundant.
Isn't that the best?
Which was just like, I feel really terrible that this, but they were like, but you honoured them throughout the whole process, and it was kind of like nice to be able to know that they felt supported, and the humanistic element was all the way through.
Yeah, I was, I've been run a big operating model piece, and it had a huge org design element. It was attached to a merger and acquisition, and we had to make about 50% of the people redundant. And just the process of going through that, we used one of the neuroscience models to inform our practice, and every decision we made, we ran it through from a SCARF lens and said, how does this impact status or autonomy and fairness, and just use that to really make sure we were doing a good job. Really. So it was myself, a HR practitioner, and some of the leaders of the team who were impacted. And anyway, so dial forward, I lived overseas for 4 years. I came back, and then one of the organizations I joined out shortly after I came back, I ran into, it's down in Melbourne, and I ran into somebody who had been made redundant as part of that process in the food court of, my new work building, and she said, "You made me redundant." Yes, I did. And she said, "But it was the best experience that I'd ever had."
Yeah.
And just the way she talked about the authenticity and the transparency and honoring the individual, and it was really evident. We used those scarf drivers to drive our decisions, and I think when you're just a good human, just be a good human. Just don't be an asshole. Yeah. If you can just use that lens, and I remember the leader I was working with at the time, I think he actually did have a heart attack, or he had some heart challenge while he was going through it, because he was so personally invested in everybody in his team, and kind of breaking his own heart going through this process, and it was it's just work. So I think, when you can apply the scarf lens to things and just don't be an a-hole, you'll actually just come out so much better from it.
And it is emotionally distraught and draining, absolutely, it's really hard to know that you're affecting people's livelihood and the impact that's going to have on it. And when I did some work with Lee H. Harrison redeployment process, it's often a redirection. So it's often just this is a different place for you. So,
it's a crossroads. Right?
It doesn't feel like it in the moment. It feels often quite demoralizing, but it can just be a redirection. So
but I think back, if we come back to the very first the thing we spoke about, one of the chaps that I was working with at the Christmas party incident, he was single. He still lived with his mom. His mom was elderly, and every day he would get dressed in a suit, pretend like he was going to work, and go sit in a park, because the organization hadn't put the support around him to help him process, and he didn't know how to tell his mom that he'd been made redundant. And I just think that terrible state that he must have been in psychologically, that and one would say, "Oh, that's denial," and I would say, I don't think it's denial. I think it's he didn't have the support that he needed to work through what was actually needed. Is that denial? Is it resistance? I think it's. I just think that the organization failed him, in that regard. Now we've got EAPs, and we've got a lot of process around it. But then it was there's a tissue box. That's the bulk of the support you're getting. Whereas now there's a lot more in place.
And the decisions around when and how you do these things is also important. So there's lots of evidence that says you don't do it on a Friday because they've got no support. Then
you don't do it before Christmas.
You don't do it before Christmas or long breaks. And
correct.
So there's some humanistic ways of just making sure when the right time is to kind of go through that process. There's
been some really interesting media in this space recently, not naming anybody, but a few organizations, and one of them was very much connected to the new psychosocial health legislation. But, if I think of, people finding out before they've been told, or, inauthentic consultation and stuff like that, what are you taking away from the media reports at the moment and the legislation that's there? And where does that leave us as practitioners?
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to blame somebody that might have made a mistake. But I remember when I used to play hockey, I was a back. So I was right at the back. And I used to get so upset if the ball had gotten through. And my coach was awesome in going, it had to go through the entire team before I got to you. It's okay. And all of those people would have been involved around that process and nobody clocked it.
Yeah.
Okay, you made a mistake, apologise, fix it. It's kind of thing. But it reminds me of something else, particularly when you're doing the larger scale operating model changes, is just be really careful what you wish for. It's a stupid saying that I use all the time. But even your incentives. So just be really clear about what sort of behaviour your incentives are going to drive. Are they going to drive the behaviour where people collaborate, or they're going to drive the behaviour where people are like going to stomp all over each other to kind of get what you need to get, particularly in sales organisations. That's an important aspect. But just, you need to think about it all, like what is the behaviour, what is the future you want to have, how do you want this to work, what teams do you need to work together better, and how can you build mechanisms, processes, supporting, KPIs, all of that sort of stuff to kind of make that work, which is why it's complicated, why it takes many years, and kind of why you need to do that. And I use that refrain quite a bit, like, be careful what you wish for. Is that what you do? Because you just play it forward, boom, 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 this is the outcome. Is that the outcome you want? No, okay, well, let's go back and play it forward again, and like just scenario it out to kind of help you work through some of that sort of stuff. So
I think that the Royal Commission into the banking and finance industry in Australia kind of, we saw the outcome of careful what you wish for. Like, what you reward people on is the behavior that you drive. What you report gets done. So when you're looking at what are those KPIs, what are those behaviors, what are those mechanisms in the future that we want to measure people against, are they the ones that are driving the value, the customer outcomes that you're trying to get, the organizational outcomes of it, or not? And then be able to work backwards from there and say, okay, well then therefore what capability do people need to have? And I think this is where, we look at the roles and responsibilities of project manager, change manager, HR in this kind of space. You have subject matter experts in operating model. It could be a consulting firm. It could be, somebody who's done it somewhere else. If you go enterprise agile, or if, you're moving from bricks and mortar to omni-channel, things like that. Those are shifts in service, they're shifts in outcomes, they're shifts in operating model. You have experts who come in who do that, but they might not have project management expertise. They might not have the HR expertise. So it's like everybody has a role to play, and understanding, you as a HR expert, this person is a change expert, that person is me as a project manager. Like how do we play together? And it's really about delivering a robust outcome at the end of the day, and not saying, oh, the HR person can run all of it, because project management might not be their core skill set.
Absolutely.
Agile might not be their core skill set.
And I think and the ability to be able to make sure that those members of those teams will respect the opinion, and not necessarily the lane opinion. So it's not necessarily, I've been in this lane, therefore that's the lane of lens or the lens that I apply, because that's, I'm the change person, I'm project manager, I'm the hate person. It's actually across. It should be always right across the board, because you may have experienced a change, you've talked about them before, over here, which was a HR process or a project manager process or a business process that made the thing harder. So all of that collective and being able to respect all of those voices in the room becomes really important for anything that they're going to say, not just their expertise.
So Chris, tell me, big bang transition, like is there a right way, is there a wrong way?
It's an interesting question, because I think there's lots of different ways to do it, lots of different ways to work out what you need to do. If you are doing a full operating model, like the whole kit and caboodle, it is probably unlikely you're going to be able to go, bang, done, move on. I think that's unlikely. And often it's about honouring the process of going through it. And as humans, we love a closure moment. We love a moment to just, it's not the freeze and unfreeze, but we do like a moment to go, that part's done. Okay. So in an educational institution that I was working with, one of the things we knew we wanted to go here, but we knew that was a big leap. That was too far to go. So we actually built steps along the way. So we'll go to here, and then we'll go to here, then we'll go to here, and then we'll go to here. Which made it easier to achieve and bite-sizable processes, but also easier to absorb, because that going from where you are to way over here was just too much, too hard. So can we build those transitional steps? And depending on the size of the organisation, will depend on how you're going to do that. So you might go, I'm going to do this division over here, or this division over here, or this is fundamental right across the board, so I need everything to happen right for get-go around that, and then kind of work that way down, or whatever the process might be. Sorry, one more thing.
Go.
And it's also horses for courses. So we did talk about agile operating model as well before. some teams are never going to be agile and don't need to be and shouldn't be forced to be, because it doesn't make sense. If they're a purely operational team, if they're a sales team, how, like, just don't waste their time. Just
Having
let
a
them get
Kanban
on.
board and taking agile practices,
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
But yeah, moving them into
Yeah.
might not make sense.
No.
One of the things you were talking about was like when you phase it out and you go, this is the first step and then this is the second. That even helps contribute to, I call it change fitness, but
Yeah,
it's about, how do you minimize fatigue? It's making sense of the journey. If you can make sense of the journey for people so that they understand this is
Yeah.
what I'm going to go through, at these points in time I'm going to experience this, then it makes them more likely, one, to move towards the change, but as you said, it makes it more bite-sizable and it's more realistic, and the
Yeah.
capability leap isn't as big, each time, but it definitely contributes to change fitness when you can say
yeah.
these are the steps in the journey that we're going to
Yeah.
take. Yeah.
And there's always, analogies that get used, like we're climbing a mountain, we're going to base camp. Like,
I remember drawing Everest on a
Everest.
wall one time, having a little mountain climber going up there. But you touched on something I really briefly touched on. I want to come back to it, which was honoring the past.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Often it can appear as if everything's rubbish. We're chucking it all out, and
Boom, boom.
yeah.
That's wrong.
Delete.
Yeah.
And that is definitely not the case, because often these organisations have created the process that they're at, wherever they're at, because of some goodness.
Yeah.
So you can't let all of that goodness go down the drain as a result of it, because you'll lose the heart. You lose the part that made that organisation work. So you absolutely need to do that, but you also need to just acknowledge that where you are now isn't going to be where you need to go in the future, and kind of understand that. But take the essence with it.
Yeah.
Take the parts that go with it. I'm trying to think of a really good example for it, but I'm doing a really poor job.
I remember one, you and I've worked a lot together. One of the things that they did really well was they put together a book of the history of the organization. It was like, this is our past, this is where we've come from. I had the privilege, it was during COVID, it was before the renovations, it was during COVID. I went back into the organization and went up to the top floor and they had built into the wall all of these artifacts, like the first cash machine in Sydney, the first photographs of the first computer that they had, and they just kind of like told the story of the organization.
Yeah.
And then there was like space for the future, and it was just so lovely. Like, you really felt the heritage of the company and honoring of what that company was as they were moving into the future, a very different future state than they probably thought of 10 years.
And
prior.
even infrastructure does that well. So anyone that's been at Wynyard train station,
I love
the escalators there were like wooden escalators. Have been for I don't know how many years they were there. But when they modernised it and changed it all over, they actually created sculptures out of them so that they're still a part of that heritage and a part of that process. And it makes me all kind of emotional, because it is really honouring the past and not saying, well, that was shit, I'm going to just get rid of it. It's kind of, how do you make this still be a really key part of kind of going forward? And there's this series, I think it's on the ABC or SBS. It's around all the tunnels and all of the infrastructure that they did to kind of build the metro and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually really awesome, even the way that they created Central Station and the elements that they built into it that honoured the past, honoured the sandstone buildings, honoured the infrastructure that was there before. Like, the way that they've done it was just so sensitive to it. It just feels literally like honouring the past, but also having that past be part of your future as well, which I think is a really important element.
And not just bulldozing it and
Not
going,
just,
gone,
bulldozing it.
like we need a modern building and what have you. I love that.
But it's also if you can create those closure moments, so those moments where people can go, so building stuff into the wall, something that they can see. Also, I've left a mark. I've contributed to this organisation in such a way that there's something that's there that kind of represents that process associated.
It's even as simple as like the farewell lunch for colleagues who are leaving, and that opportunity to say thank you and farewell, and this isn't farewell, let's see you next time, and because there's revolving doors everywhere, and literally and figuratively, and those rituals of saying goodbye and giving people that moment. I think in this day and age, we're really quick to go, oh, team lunch, self-funded, you have 30 minutes, like in and out, and it's not like, no, like if I think back to that Christmas episode, the one thing that they did well was the farewell, like Friday afternoon, started at lunchtime, let us go out together to really decompress with each other.
Absolutely.
And this was after the Christmas, after we returned in January, but like let us decompress together and say, thank you and good luck, and 100% every single one of those people I've worked with. Like it's just been an amazing, it was an amazing group of people, and the revolving door is real, and you want to give them that opportunity to honor that past, say farewell, and set themselves up to process it, to then move forward with an open heart, open mind.
And there's two particular points I want to make about that. If you're leaving an organisation and you're not the type of person that likes to go to those sorts of farewells, I always say, suck it up, sweetheart, because it's actually not about you. And people are like, what? I'm the one leaving. How could it not be about me? It's absolutely not about you. It's about giving them the moment to appreciate the things that you've done or helped or whatever it is. It's actually about everybody else and not about you. And one person who hopefully will be watching this will remember I've had that very conversation with you.
She's not sitting here.
Not sitting here, but
we've probably had a similar conversation as an introvert that you'd never guess.
So really important to recognise that it's not about you. But you can create those closure moments around anything. One of the things that I did that was a little bit unusual, let's say, is we were actually had the privilege of both implementing the system and then taking that same system out. So it was a really unusual process to be able to sort of do that. But there was a lot of attachment to it that came along with that when we were taking it out. So we had typical project closure once it's all kind of finished, at a party, blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. But I knew that it needed something more than that. So we actually created a gravestone, a gravestone cake. So it had like a gravestone, had RIP. The baker was quite surprised at the request. They're like, you want what? But it was a really, really symbolic, cathartic event for people to be chopping up this cake that looks like a grave into little bits and pieces and kind of sharing it, because then people could share, like, oh, remember when it, did this thing, or remember this, like they just could really kind of authentically share. At the end of the night when I was about to take it home or take it in the next day or something, somebody stole the gravestone, stole the headstone. That's classic. So that says how important it was for somebody that was like a symbolic part of kind of doing that. So you can introduce some fun things like that.
Absolutely.
Honouring the past. All right, so let's wrap it up with the lessons. Sure. So what are the lessons? Operating model, org change. What are the key things?
The names in the boxes come last.
Last, absolutely last.
Co-design is absolutely possible.
Yep.
And should be honoured because you'll get a much better result about it.
And it also means that you honour the past by doing that as well, by honouring the organisation, the essence of it, the core, by making people You
will change. You will follow this.
You will co-design.
Clarity of role.
Yes.
Project management, change management, HR, leadership, and clarity of role. What else?
That you need all of them.
You need all of them,
and that they can cross-pollinate. You don't have to stick to I'm the project manager, therefore I only do this.
Yeah.
Cross-pollinate. Honour the past.
Honour the past
as well.
And think about how you can transition. What are the phases of transition? Yeah.
And the other part is to make sure that you do that human lens, the neuroscience lens on it. So constantly ask yourself, have I inadvertently triggered or threatened this process by doing whatever, like making sure you kind of use that and be really, really clear on the language. It's probably sometimes I say you could go off the cuff, but this is one where I go, make sure you analyze every single word. Like, is that word going to make somebody think
Yeah.
this or this?
Was it threatening? Yeah.
Yeah, like go through absolutely every single word to make sure that you're very super clear about it, that it's honouring, and then be really clear on that process end to
Yeah.
end, so that throughout the whole experience you are honouring them as humans, you're treating them with respect, and you're making sure that they understand exactly what's happening when.
Yeah. And I've one more. You can beat
One
me
more.
out. What beat me out if I
Okay.
need to. Don't be an a-hole. Like, just be a nice person.
Yeah.
Just be nice.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
big. It's a big deal for people.
it's massive.
Yeah.
Massive. Yeah, no, I don't. It's absolutely the right thing to say.
Okay.
Completely. I probably would have actually said the word. But
Fair enough.
do you want to do it? You got to be brave enough to say it.
I mean, my mom might be watching.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Man. Fair enough. My mum might be watching too. She probably wouldn't be appropriate. So that.
And YouTube doesn't like it.
Oh, YouTube doesn't like it. There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, there you go. Voice from the deep. So that was. We could probably talk a little bit more about it, and we have talked about maybe getting some voice off the streets.
Yes.
From people that have been through this as well. So that's something that we'll like to add to this process, because there's a lot. There's a lot in this element, but that's operating model. That's all change. Some really, really juicy lessons there. Don't go through the experience, Jen.
Don't do that.
Don't do
Don't put
that.
people on a boat after you've made them redundant.
With loads of alcohol.
With loads of alcohol. Yeah, for sure.
So thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome.